Hey everyone, welcome back to For Car's Sake. Today we're going to work on the EK again, where we'll be upgrading the steering wheel, going from the standard one to our new one, where I've wrapped the steering wheel cover over it. It took me 2 tries and approximately 4 hours in total before getting it to this stage. So stick around if you want to check it out and learn how to do it yourself as well, DIY. Oops. I'm stuck in a bit of a dilemma. This is about 1 centimeter too tall, and so it's not going to completely close the gap there, and there's going to be a massive overlap on top as well. So let's begin. The first thing to do is to actually open up your bonnet and unplug the battery, because whenever you touch anything SRS related, always unplug the battery. To take the steering wheel off, it's pretty simple. You remove this cap, and then you also remove this cap, and just remove this one as well to unplug the SRS airbag. Let's get started. And one more very important thing, before you start, make sure the steering wheel is bang on straight. So now I've undone the 2 nuts on the side. As you pull off, you'll find the SRS cable hanging on. There's our little bolt. Just take this thing out of the white, take this plug out of the white clips. You just lift it and push it down. Okay. To remove this, all you have to do is put your fingers on the side, squeeze down, and then it's going to pop out. And to undo these, make sure you press your thumb on this little clip there, otherwise it's not going to come out. So there's the airbag. Make sure you undo these wires, because when you pull the wheel, the last thing you want is to pull those out as well. And to undo this nut, you're going to need 14 mil. Use a breaker bar. Just get the steering wheel lock on, I guess. Okay. So I've just cracked the nut using the steering wheel lock. Now that it's loose, I'm gonna undo it. And do not undo it all the way, because sometimes when these steering wheels, because they've been on for 20 odd years, they can get stuck. And I'm actually yanking on it and it's not coming off. There we go. Give it a slap, give it a twist, and this is why you leave the nut on. Sometimes people yank on it and it suddenly comes off and you smack yourself in the face with the steering wheel. And I can tell you from experience, smacking yourself in the face with the steering wheel is not so fun. here we are, taken out. Alright, got this in the mail. We want steering wheel cover. So the one I've ordered is the perforated one. Comes with double-sided tape, a trim removal kit, red string, needle, and also that's to protect your finger. And then an instruction. The texture on this actually feels pretty good. It's a little bit stretchy, the material. The stitching, the end of the stitching looks pretty good as well. Here's the joint. And this is the front of the steering wheel, and this is the back of the steering wheel. So before we get this on, I'm going to pull it completely apart to make sure the install is the best that I could do. So the first thing I'm going to do is give the steering wheel a quick wipe first. Look at that. At the end of the day, it is 20 odd years old. So in a way, I'm very glad I'm doing this. Look at that. Okay. So when you slip it on, you definitely need to stretch the material a little bit. And it looks like even when you stitch it up, you're gonna have to stretch it to get them to close up as well. Starting off with the first step, double-sided tape. You're supposed to have double-sided tape basically all the way around. Probably would be easier to have done this before. You slip this on. Alright, okay, so I've temporarily located these. Make sure you get this bit here really good, otherwise I reckon it's gonna feel loose once it's once you've done sewing it. And in fact, I think I'm just gonna add a little bit more just down there to ensure it stays on and doesn't come off. I'm stuck in a bit of a dilemma. This is about 1 centimeter too tall, and so it's not going to completely close the gap there, and there's going to be a massive overlap on top as well. So I think what I'm going to do is completely redo the wheel. Make sure you guys don't fall into that and make the same mistake as me, because it actually took me 1.5 to 2 hours to get the wheel to where it is now, only to get it all off and redone as well. Restitch the whole thing, spend another 2 hours. Okay, now that I'm doing it a second time, I'm going to add a bit more double-sided tape, both front and back on this side, to make sure I secure this one first. Likewise, I'm going to add a little bit more on there to try and secure these 4 key spots first before stitching any of this together. And another thing is, I've also decided, instead of doing the top from one end to another end, I'm going to start both ends and then finish up and try to join it in the middle. So hopefully this way I'll get a more even pull along the whole cover, and I won't have that same problem happen again. Make sure you put sticky tape into the back here, especially in this area, to secure it, because it does go in, and without tape the stitching is not going to hold it tight against this here in the middle. I'm going to do the same for this one down here as well. And also another small thing was right here. When I undid the stitching, unfortunately, when I cut it, I cut this actual stitch, and if I'm not careful and if I pull too hard, all this red stitching is going to come undone, and when that happens, I will be stuffed. So I gotta be extra careful there. So yeah, let's get cracking again. Whatever the distance is, use about 3 times the string. Be a bit generous, it doesn't matter. In case you guys don't know how to do these knots, you roll the string around your finger, spin it along, then pull, and you're gonna end up with that little knot. Let me do it again. So this time it actually doubles up at the same spot. So yeah, now you can see 2 knots came together at the same spot up there. Make sure you go from the inside out. That way you don't end up with this ugly stitching, that ugly knot up front. For the first few, I'm going to do, instead of skipping one, I'm going to do every single one, just because there's quite a bit of tension and kind of like forming that needs to be done. Okay, going to start skipping one, And at the moment I have found it seems to be the easiest when you do it like this at the edge of a table, so you can clearly see where you're stitching, etc. And I've also found it helps with keeping kind of tension, constant tension on the thread. Alright, so I'm not going to finish that just yet. I'm going to start on the other side. Now that this side is pretty snug, I'm going to make sure this other side fits on right, and then move upwards on the steering wheel. Try to make sure on the steering wheel there's actually a bit of a joint. Make sure the joint of this matches the steering wheel's one. Okay. I'm currently at about halfway point, so I'm just gonna stop. But if you have a look at this corner, I'm a lot happier about the corner this time compared to the first time I've done it. I've accidentally skipped quite a lot of stitches there. No wonder the stitches were a bit off. Damn. And over here, where the two different material matches, I have a feeling it'll be better if you don't skip them and you actually go every hole. Yeah, I might redo this bit. Okay, so a bit of a progress update. I've now started on the right hand side of the steering wheel. I've got this bit where the thumb goes on. Done. Sorry, not done. Started. And I've double checked that this side, they do match they will need a bit of a stretch, but otherwise they do reach. So I'm going to try to make sure this doesn't end up folding right there, and keep going, and I'll give you guys another update soon. One way that I found that really helps tighten up that little gap in between is you pull and then you put your other finger just before it, and then one by one pull, hold, pull, hold. Then this way you one by one take up all the slack. You'll find your cover closes up a lot better and doesn't leave like a 1 mil gap. Alright, another quick update. Most of the wheel is done, just this final part left. I am a lot more happy with the result this time around. Over here ended up being a little bit overstretched, I think, unfortunately, because this is my second time wrapping it. It's just a little overstretched, but still quite happy. Now just the last little bit. Alright, the final bit. Whatever the distance is, use about 3 times the string. Be a bit generous, it doesn't matter. In the kit it came with 2 rolls of this. I've actually stuffed up and kind of wasted quite a bit of string already, and I still have so much left. So yeah, just be generous. You're definitely going to have quite a lot left over. Alright, all the stitching is now done. Just need to cut off that little bit. Overall, I'm very happy with this $50–60 upgrade. And where I can, I am ending right around the back and also at these spots. As mentioned last time, I did stitch from the side up to the top, which is why up here there's a bit of a weird pattern as well, because that's where I finished tied up the knots from both sides. But yeah, as you can see, it does fit pretty well. And as mentioned, anywhere there's a seam like this where it gets thick, instead of skipping one, do all of them, otherwise you'll end up with a bit of a gap in the middle due to the thickness. But yeah, overall I am pretty happy. So a bit of a small stuff up here. As you can see, I must have had the steering wheel facing down and I missed that stitch there. So I am not planning to redo the whole thing just for that. So I'm going to attempt to add an additional one right there. Alright, definitely not ideal. You're never gonna really see it at the steering wheel, but Anyways, and yeah, this thing feels so much nicer. Can't wait to fit it on the car. Alright, let's take a look at this. Valves fit through this hole. Make sure you do tighten it up well. Plugging in the horn first. And then the SRS plug. Make sure to put the SRS plug back. Feeding those wires back the way they were. And then just clipping this. You might not be able to see it, but just need to clip it back in the way it was. Before you secure anything, make sure all the little ends are all tucked in. And before you complete the install and fully tighten everything up, just connect the battery again. Make sure the horn works. It's probably a better idea to go for a quick drive. Make sure you have the steering wheel centered exactly. I've also confirmed the SRS is working just fine. There we go. Check that out. It's not done up yet, but that looks sweet. Overall, I think with the quality, fitment and everything, it was definitely time consuming, but I'm really happy with how this has come up. The camera isn't picking it up that well. There is a color difference between this and the original gray. So I'm most very likely going to paint this black as well to match the new leather. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you think it's worthwhile? I think in the future, I might want an option for the black stitching instead of the red or the blue. Because when it's red or blue, it's very obvious if you make a mistake. Whereas if it's black, you can hide it, or at least it's not as obvious. And I do wonder also about the longevity of this. Obviously I've just installed it, and as I drive more, I'll let you guys know and provide you an update on how we go. Anyways, thank you very much for your time today. Overall, I think this being a 2-hour plus modification is still pretty good and definitely time well spent.